Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Tasha Littles, the Director of Parent Support Network, and I have today Lisa Math, who is our co-director of United Families Children Mental Health and our Family Star program. And you'll hear a little bit more about all of our programs a little bit later in this webinar. So we're happy that you're here. Today we're going to be talking about making your case and the importance of advocacy. So making your case, in my opinion, is just the simplest way to advocate on a much larger scale. Why? Because it's all about your story and how you share your experience. So this presentation, because we really want to make sure we get through everything and making sure you have all the components necessary to make your case, it's broken out into 4 different parts. The first one being the importance of advocacy. The second module focusing on being an advocate. The third module focused on telling your story, and I love that. And the fourth module is based around visiting with your legislators. That would be federal, state, or even district. So thank you. We are happy that you are here. And now Lisa is going to talk to you a little bit about who FND is and how we got started.
Thanks so much, Tasha. I'm thrilled to be collaborating with you and Parent Support Network today. As she mentioned, I am the co-director for Family Star, United Families for Children's Mental Health, and I'm thrilled to be here presenting to our families and our advocates out in the community. So Family Network on Disabilities is a 501c3 nonprofit. We help families, educators, professionals, and providers throughout the state of Florida, and it's at no charge to them. We are funded in part by the Department of Education, Department of Health, and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And we do this to support, as I mentioned, throughout the state of Florida, the opportunities for us to be able to give you the best you need. We are a national network of individuals of all ages who may be at risk or have disabilities themselves or are caregivers for someone with a disability. We were founded in 1985 by a group of parents who are actually struggling to find the resources they needed for their loved one with disabilities. And now 35 years later, that grassroots organization is statewide and well recognized for our professional approach to supporting all of those out in the community, whether it's a family member or a youth or a professional. What makes us really unique, and I think this is something that we are very, very proud of at FND, is that we are a peer-run, family-driven organization where the majority of our board of directors, our management team, our leadership team, and our frontline staff either are individuals with their own experience with disabilities or are caring for someone with a disability. And that's really what makes us stand out as we support everyone throughout the state. What I do need to point out is that we are not attorneys, doctors, or mental health professionals, and so we're not able to give any legal or medical advice. But we are able to support you, your loved one, or those in the community supporting those with disabilities through resource sharing, information, and support through phone calls, face-to-face meetings, and at various events throughout the community.
All right. Thank you. So now, right before we get into making your case and the importance of advocacy, I want to explain what FND's mission is, because the mission is to strive for complete integration and equality of persons with disability in a society without barriers, and to serve families and children with disabilities birth through 26. So next slide, Lisa. I really wanted to share that so that our families and professionals and maybe even students who are watching have a greater understanding why we are really working and really making sure that they understand the importance of advocacy, because it does remove barriers in the community. So the importance of advocacy. So today we're going to talk around these 5 main domains, which is democracy, what it is and what it is not, registering to vote, voter accessibility, and how you can make a difference just by voting or just by understanding the advocacy. And also a sample of a campaign that a few well-known advocates around the nation have used. So next slide.
Sure. So that's really exciting. And Tasha, as you mentioned, we are going to talk about voting, and it is really critical in our time today that we talk about this and really make it clear and understandable for those of you watching us today. So let's talk about what democracy is. Well, the definition is it's a government by the people, a form of government in which the supreme power is vested in the people and exercised directly by them or by their elected agents under a free electoral system. Really critical today to talk about what that term means, because I think we don't really think about the word democracy when we use it, but it really has a very definitive approach to how our government is being handled. And as long as people are given a chance to vote, to choose their representatives, and to have a stance in social and political issues, then democracy is actually working. So the biggest part of democracy is our right to vote. And we need to understand whatever we believe, voting is our voice in that system of democracy. And so that process looks like we need to first and foremost get registered. And that means either applying online and going and showing your ID in person if necessary, and filling out the application to register as a citizen of this country who has that right to vote. You want to be an advocate to talk about voting with your friends and family to get them registered. The more people that vote, the more accurate democracy will be represented in our country, and that we will be sure that the majority voice is heard. If only a small percentage of people are voting, then we know the majority of voices are not getting heard. But those small minorities may be the ones actually making the final choices for the rest of us. And finally, you might want to even consider holding a registration to vote drive. So going out in the community and helping to support those agencies that register voters that may not know how to do that. You may be involved in campaigns for different organizations that go out and register voters. I know there's a League of Women Voters will do that. And so there's options in our community to be active participants in the form of democracy that we're talking about.
Thank you, Lisa. So voter registration, if we don't speak up and communicate with our legislators, how are they going to know what our community needs and how they can help change in that policy-making process? And if you're not sure how to register, there is a link in this presentation, www.usa.gov/how-to-vote. And that'll give you some more information on who can vote, anyone over the age of 18, how to register to vote, the different ways to vote, and what to bring when you vote. And I'll share that when I went off to college, that is when I became a registered voter, because there were people in front of my campus union that said, "Hey, are you registered to vote?" And I was like, "No, I'm not registered." And right then and there, I became a voter, a registered voter, and I am happy that I did that. Thank you. Next slide.
Yep, I'm already there. I'm good.
Okay, thanks. All right, so accessibility for voting for persons with disability. So Florida law allows you as a registered voter to have assistance, marking your choices on your ballot if you need assistance because of blindness, disability, or inability to read or write. You may request assistance from the election office or select someone to assist you. You may choose whoever you want to assist you. And that's coming directly from Disability Rights Florida. So if you want more information on accessibility and voting, make sure that you check out www.disabilityrightsflorida.org.
Awesome. And I want to just say, Tasha, that it is critical that all of our marginalized populations have a voice in the form of democracy. And we certainly are, as an organization, really on top of the fact that we want people with disabilities to have the same equal voice and access to voicing their interest in voting that every other population has. So I'm really excited that this is part of the presentation, because we often forget that if somebody can't access a building, they can't get in to vote, but they can go online and request a ballot.
Yes.
Awesome. So as we continue this conversation about persons with disabilities having voter rights, you want to understand that you have the right to make your own choices and to vote by yourself. Florida law requires that voting systems, the actual voting machines, and polling places be accessible for persons with disabilities. That means that they can get a wheelchair into that facility, that they have the ability to read the ballots, and that they have the ability to cast that vote. So it's important that if you do need assistance, that you reach out and find that assistance through the supervisor of elections offices. You also have the right to bring somebody to assist you if that person needs to help you, or you can get assistance from an election worker. You would probably need to just set that up in advance, just because with the day of voting being a little chaotic, it's hard to stop somebody in the middle of when there's long lines and ask them to assist you. So you want to probably make sure you have that set up in advance. Remember, you have the right to get personal help at the voting polls, even if you vote early, which we now know there are many states that have voter days more than one day. There are actually early voting weeks now. And you can have anyone you want to help you except your employer or an employee of an agency or of a union that may be involved in the process of voting. So you got to be careful that you pick somebody that would be eligible to be an assistant. With regards to polling place accessibility, Florida law requires that all polling places be accessible. And that means counties are receiving dollars from the federal government in order to make that happen. And if you see that it's not accessible in your polling place, then that is something that you need to let your supervisor of election know. And even if you have a guardian, unless your vote to write has been specifically removed by a court, you are still eligible to vote. As we mentioned, we also have the right to vote by mail, and I think that this is really critical that we understand this process. Make sure you research either online or by calling the supervisor of elections office to find out what the rules are for your community, to find out if you can access vote by mail, or some places they call it absentee ballots. And then you can have anyone, again, help you make those choices on those ballots that you're going to have to send back by mail. Keep in mind that because mail takes time, we want to make sure that we're doing this in a really quick turnaround and that we're getting our votes out in a timely manner so that they are received and counted. And something to keep in mind is that many of the supervisors of elections now have an opportunity for you to go online and check whether or not your ballot has been received and actually counted.
I love that option, by the way, Lisa. Thank you for mentioning that. I love the fact that after I have made my choice, that I can go and make sure that I was counted.
Yes, and believe me, I've done it every time I've used an absentee ballot, because my biggest fear is that it's sitting in a mailbox and it hasn't been delivered. So yes, thrilled to share that information with everybody. Again, we want to make sure that if you do go the day of voting or early voting, you bring the proper ID, and you want to make sure that when you sign that your signatures match if you are using a ballot that you're going to send back in, and that the information that you have on file is accurate and matches what you are sending back, because again, your vote will not be counted if your signature doesn't match or your information does not match that you have submitted. So I love this slide, and of course I'm very thrilled to be able to share the words of Nelson Mandela, a wonderfully educated man who said, an educated, enlightened, and informed population is one of the surest ways of promoting the health of a democracy. And how true is that now? We need to educate ourselves. We need to be informed about our choices and what is going on around us in our world so that we are making sure our voices are heard and that those voices accurately reflect what we want our feelings to be known for.
Right. Look at this slide. Rights, freedom, voice, choice. Looking at the importance of advocacy, saying all of that, you need to know the process so that you can be heard. It's important when you're advocating for yourself or for someone else or on the behalf of someone else that you are not afraid to ask and tell people what it is that you need or what it is that you want for your community or for yourself. Advocacy is especially important now because of the many legislative changes that have made social assistance, mental health services, and other areas that impact the lives of people with disabilities. You don't need special training to be an advocate. Anyone can do it. Your voice matters. It makes the difference.
So true.
And so our next place that we're going to talk about is making your case. Of course, there is a robust presentation put out by the Florida Developmental FDDC website, Florida Developmental Disabilities Council, and it's a longer course, and it was developed by the Minnesota Governor's Council to make sure that all persons with disabilities understood what making your case was. So we've taken it and we've adapted it to Florida to meet Florida needs. And there's also a really cool app. I have it downloaded on my phone. I have it downloaded on my child's phone, and it's called Telling Your Story. And it's a tool for persons with disabilities, family members, and other advocates. They can use it to compose and practice a personal story that they may present to an elected official or policymaker. Now in the days of Zoom, you can practice doing it on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. So true. And you know, it's actually a great app that I use as well to practice things I may want to say at a meeting.
Yeah.
Or to advocate in a committee, and I want to make sure that my thoughts are accurately portrayed. So I'll practice on that app if I'm going to do some presentations at a meeting, or even if I'm going to an IEP meeting, and I really want to make sure that my thoughts are heard.
Yes, that's so good. Thank you, Lisa, for adding on to that, because it's true. Just because it says telling your story and it's made for this one specific thing, you can refurbish it, make it your own, and use it for whatever your needs are.
Awesome.
So your role in the democratic process of government, it doesn't end at the polls. You know, by sharing your opinions and ideas with your representatives and senators in Tallahassee, you help them decide what to do about the issues before the legislator even takes action. So think about it. The legislator wins an election. He or she leaves your home state, goes to Washington, and suddenly finds himself voting on a range of issues, including taxation, trade, defense, healthcare, pension benefits, all while hearing absolutely nothing from his or her constituents who are entrusting them to represent them. He will quickly realize that he can't cover everything by himself, and the only way to stay on top of this is to make sure the constituents are telling him or her what is important. And it's so true. Growing up, my mom said you vote for everything, even if it's what do you want for lunch? Is it a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or a ham sandwich? You need to make your voice count, and because you may get something that you don't want if you choose or elect not to vote.
So true. So true. So let's talk about how you can make a difference. Really important. And I know a lot of times we have kind of a defeatist attitude. It's, I'm just one person and I'm just one vote, and I only have, a thought that they probably aren't going to listen to. That is not the truth. And the reality is that maybe you'll be the one of 5 to 10 people that lawmaker may hear from, but that impact will be much more than just from one person. So chances are that your voice is going to be heard in different forums. And helping a member of Congress know what you want, even again, if you're from a small group, can truly change laws. And keep in mind that most legislators don't hear from anyone. So hearing from even a couple of people can make a decision change and make him change or her change her mind in the right direction. So most legislators don't necessarily believe that they're going to hear from their constituents. So by your one voice, you're actually multiplying the impact you're going to have, and potentially could be even more impactful than you realize. There's also other ways for you to increase your effectiveness of advocacy by just being more engaged in legislative advocacy efforts. For example, attend a candidate forum and legislative workshops or panels in your community. I know I've done that, Tasha. And when people are running for election, I've gone and I've asked very pointed questions about what do they intend to think about and vote on in these particular circumstances, and get some feedback, and they get my feedback as well. You can hold your own town meetings or town halls and get feedback, or rallies and marches where you can bring together people with like-minded thoughts to promote the ideas that you want to see move forward in your community. Or even just ask friends and family to do letter writing or calling into the legislative office so that they can make an impact as well. Advocacy includes educating policymakers and the public about broad school issues and social issues, and encouraging people to vote. Advocacy is defined as the act of pleading for, supporting, or recommending something. We all do that day in and day out in our lives. If we as a youth decide we want something, we're going to advocate for trying to getting it from our parents. And I'm pretty sure we've all encountered that. That's a form of advocacy that we don't really think about. And another example is the idea that advocacy is a nonprofit organization or person that works to help with people with disabilities. For example, we are an advocacy group at Family Network on Disabilities. So we go out into the community, on legislative needs. We talk to state legislators during their time when they're in session and available to talk to the communities. We're out there promoting letter writing and offering information to train others in the community to become advocates. And it really is a form of community building as well. Legislative advocacy is working with the individual lawmakers and bodies to gain support for your cause or initiative and for the needs of a specific population. In this case, we may be talking about people with disabilities, or for organizations, or for specific services. And that means it is our role to educate those that don't know, whether it's fellow advocates or it's the legislators themselves.
Before we get to this sample campaign that what we talked about earlier in the objectives, one of the things about, just that introduction to advocacy, sometimes as a parent, you're like, oh, I don't know if my child, who is a person with a disability, is ready to vote, even though they're getting, closer to that age. In my perspective, it's always good to ask and say, hey, would you like to vote? So, and being a friend, I've asked my other friends who have adult children, hey, are you registered to vote? Because it is such a very important way for persons with disability to advocate, is to make sure they're registered. So let's get into the R word. So ending the R word. This was a campaign that I know everyone heard about. It went worldwide. So let's talk a little bit about what an advocacy campaign is. So boiled down, an advocacy campaign is a methodology methodological, and strategic approach to reach a specific time-sensitive goal. And this campaign is a great example of advocacy, and this was a huge win in the state of Florida when it became the 40th state to unanimously pass a law replacing the R word with intellectual disability into its state laws. People with disabilities want to be treated as equal and given the same opportunities, decisions, choices, rights, responsibilities, and chances to speak, to empower themselves as everyone else. Self-advocates had a goal and went about a strategic approach in raising awareness for this campaign called the R word, spread the word to end the word. And they did so much to support the elimination of derogatory use of the R word, and in collaboration with a lot of disability agencies. So the first thing for a dedicated campaign is you want to make sure you pick up a web page. You know, ask for online pages or online pledges on those web pages, video messaging how to take the pledge to end, in this case, since we're talking about this campaign, to end the R word. Share key messages and talking points to stakeholders when making phone calls with legislatures. And we'll really dive into that in part 4 of our module on how to talk to your legislatures. Also, for the campaign, you want to make sure that they take their stories to the Capitol, where the decisions are made. Fact sheets, one-pagers about yourself, your family, your community, how it affects their community. They created social media banners to use. They planned R word events around the state, and they actually made toolkits for persons who wanted to do it, maybe who weren't a part of the group but wanted to be supportive. Not to mention the amount of work it took to create the graphics, the t-shirts, the printable banners and buttons, and social media covers. There was so much more people with disabilities fighting for. And some of those examples are the use of today is my day. Thank you all for bearing with me. The use of adversaries to support the efforts to eliminate the use of those adhesives, those words that serve as punishment, kind of. Closing institutions, both private and public institutions. You know, those were campaigns to like close down Lacania in Pennsylvania. Employment, to end sub-minimum wage. You know, there are 30, 40, and 50-year-olds who are in sheltered workshops, maybe looking at the wall, or some people who are earning 45 cents an hour. So these campaigns were set up to make sure that this one was ending the R word, but also ending other things that are not equitable for persons with disability.
Yeah, this was a big campaign,
It was huge.
Yeah.
So as promised, we are going to talk a little bit more about our program. In this beautiful graphic, you can see the 3 PTIs at the top, which are Parent Training and Information Centers. Fun fact, that every single state in the US and US territory has a Parent Training and Information Center. So if you're planning on leaving the state of Florida, we don't want you to do that. But if you were, there would be help and support for you in a different state. Florida, because it's diverse and it's a huge and a densely populated state, we have 3 PTIs, which is Parents of the Panhandle, supporting 37 of our counties in North Florida. We have Parent Support Networks supporting 20 counties and 21 school districts across Central Florida. And then PEN, which is Parent Education Network, supporting our the low 10 counties at the bottom of the state, not low, at the bottom. We also have Family Star, as we introduced Lisa earlier, and United Families Children Mental Health. And those 2 programs serve the entire state of Florida. Family Star supports families who have medically complex or medically needy children, and the United Families Children Mental Health supports families who are looking for more resources and support for their children with mental health. And as you can see on the side, There is the FND Trust programs, which are housed under the umbrella of FND. And we also have FND Dadvocates, where we support dads. And we have a toolkit even on our website if you wanted to go and peruse. Next slide.
Great. So this slide gives you some information about how you can get some incredible resources off of our website and our social media pages. So on the bottom there, you can see our website, www.fndusa.org. I highly encourage you to check us out. We have an incredible resource bank. It's downloadable and printable. It comes in a couple of languages. We have information about the school districts and the systems of the school systems. We have information about medical needs and the system of care and mental health needs and that system of care. And we also have an incredibly vibrant footprint on the social media sites. If you go on our FND website, Facebook pages, you will see that we are always actively posting either workshops or live events or resource information or information that we recently culled from different federal agencies to support your needs as you are supporting your loved one. I also want to encourage you to check out FND University. It is actually on our website. It is a non-accredited e-learning program that allows you to learn more about how to advocate for your loved one, but you can do it at your own convenience. And finally, if you feel that you might benefit from the services that FND has for you, please give us a call. Our 800 number is 800-825-5736. We have staff waiting for you to call in and give us what information you feel you need help with. And then you will be assigned a person throughout the state near your, that will be able to meet the needs of your loved one or your family, or that may be able to be close to you in proximity that could help you once we go back into the face-to-face mode. And we really want to thank you for being a part of the part one of our 4-part series, Making Your Case. We are very excited that you're taking the time to learn how to be an effective advocate, to make change, not only for your loved one, but for every one of those that may need the support and have their voices heard. They may not have their own voices. So we're doing that for them. And I really am thrilled to be working with you again, Tasha. Always love when we collaborate.
You too, Lisa. Family Star is greatly needed across the state, and I love the fact that you are in that position and supporting families across the state, which is a huge task. So thank you for taking time to do this presentation with me, because I know you're a busy lady. So
My pleasure.
Thank you everyone for joining in, and we'll see you again in part 2. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.